And here we are online again. This time around I have to animate a frog one more time for a video game, really. So it's the same frog from the previous stream that I have to animate. And in the previous stream I was preparing some sort of idle with the... let's have a look at it a bit clearer. So I was preparing some sort of idle animation with the throat becoming bigger and the frog jumping, first performing a controlled jump forward, there you go, and then having another jump to the side as a result of being defeated in game. This was the stuff that I was animating in the previous stream. Now I have a bit of a problem with the idol, because the request of the director was that the idol needed to look a bit mischievous, and right now the idol is a bit generic. Granted, this is a secondary character of a game, but still I would like, if the director gave some directions, I think it would make sense to try and follow those. And then this is... oh, River Tales the game. This is an animation that I have to do for a project called River Tales the game. You can find the link in the description of the video as well as the chat. So I'm animating for I'm animating for this project, and the gentleman behind the project gave me permission to stream some of the process. So I found it would have been a good idea to record that. So let's do this idol that needs to look a bit mischievous. So to begin with, I'm thinking maybe the mischievousness, if I can say that way, could come from the fact that the frog is maybe looking sideways every now and then. In real life, frogs do not really move so much when they are in a... well, they don't move the eyes so much, that's the problem. So you see that they kind of stay there, they don't move that much. I think there may be something there about if you move too much you become more visible, and that's not really in the interest of the frog. So we're going to take some leeway here. I guess I will need to have the facial animation GUI for this animation if I want to try it out. So, and I will try out an idol in which the frog is basically just staying alive a little bit, waving left and right, but I wanted to also dart left and right and see how it looks like, if it looks a little bit more mischievous. Another thing is probably I'm going to scale up the eyes a little bit, that looks more like it. I have some expression sheets from the director, but you see there doesn't seem to be a standard expression there. Probably the one on the right is the one which is the most standard expression, and in there the pupils are pretty big, so I will just scale up the pupils just so that they will look a bit more in line with what the director wanted. And then I'm testing. There you go. Maybe if I had a little bit of a dart sideways, this could work. So I'm going to make an idol that is much longer than it was originally in the past stream. Then I will also have to animate a frog croaking, so a proper croak, and I guess that will be it. So 2, 4, 3, let's find where the previous idol was starting and ending. 243. So between 201 and 243 we had the idles, so maybe I can just duplicate that idle. So the frog would, yes, would come and go between these two poses, the 201. There you go. 243. I'm checking the length. I am making the idle longer because if I need to introduce a blink in there or some eye dart, I don't want the character to keep darting left and right during an idle. I just want it to happen every now and then. Maybe I could introduce one more loop in that run. So this would be 159. And there you go. So the run now would last 3 times as long to support the blink in the middle. Okay, now let's try and animate a blink to see if this is the way to go. Okay, so we have some shapes that we could employ for the blink. I'm wondering how would the frog look like if I blinked this way. Well, let's try out. There's only one way to figure that out, and it's try. So I'm going to select all controls from the face rig. And I'm going to see maybe the moment the frog oscillates to its left, I'm going to start the blink. So with 2 frames in closure and maybe 3-4 frames in opening. Let's see what we have. So maybe we can also do an anticipation to the closure, and we can achieve that by scaling up the eyes ever so slightly. So there will be a little bit of an anticipation there, you see. And then we want to close those eyes. Shut. So I have, maybe I can close the eyes this way. That looks interesting, I think. It looks mischievous, and the brief is that it should be mischievous. So here we are. And then I guess I want to change to that sprite. Maybe a bit quicker. I was mentioning in the previous stream that I made the facial rig for this, and it wasn't really designed to do very complex facial animation, because this is as a character which will be very small in game. There you go. So the first frame will be, the eyes will be closing only ever so slightly, so maybe I can go something like this. Maybe will work. Let's see. So we close a little bit, then we do a mega close. Just 1 frame after that. So That's still a lot of closure. Maybe I'm going to reduce the amount of closure. Let's see. I'm using just these eyelids shapes, these eyeball shapes for all the characters of the game. So I kind of have to make them work for every character which I have in game. This could possibly work. I would like to give the idea that the lower lid moves a bit more than the higher lid. In fact, I wonder if I couldn't just have the blink a lot higher here, so they looked a bit more like a frog's blink. And also, I'm curious to maybe see if I can close in a non-parallel way. Just to make it look a little bit more alien. Maybe that could work. And, well, let's see. So we now have the closure. And I want to dart maybe in one direction while I close. So I'm going to... Maybe I could start the dart already during the anticipation. So... just a little bit of motion. And then when we have the closed pose, I can just scale the pupil shape a lot bigger. And this way it will look as if... Ooh, this is... sorry. Let me just go back to the original scale. So this way I can simulate the closure as if I was drawing a black line on the pupil, on the eyelid edge. And then we want to reopen. Maybe we can stay there with the same pose for a couple of frames. So we're just going to stay there, and maybe I can move up. Oh, sorry, I have selected a lot of stuff. There you go. I think it's a good idea to call in an embot at this stage. I need a selection set. There you go. So I need a selection set. It's going to be frog face. There you go. So I want this pose at 159 to stay. Ooh, am I crashing? I think I might be crashing. Oh, no, I didn't crash. Cool. So we close, and maybe I can... Oops, sorry. Maybe I can keep going up a little bit and squint some more. And then of course I would need to open up again. So maybe I will start by using the pose I came from. But maybe with the eyes not as wide open. And I can't land with the eyes straight, right? So maybe I can keep this pose for a little bit longer. Open up the eyes, lower the pupils just to make it look in one direction, something like this, I guess. I wonder if I can just rotate this eye a little bit. If it looks sideways, it looks a bit mischievous. Maybe that's something that could work for us. And then this is no longer going to be our pose. So now I want to check the animation. There you go. I think it could work. And then I will have to go back from this expression. Probably at the end of the loop. As a first attempt, I will try to just reverse the animation. So we'll just paste it here in the graph editor. I'm going to grab these guys and I'm going to scale time by -1 with a pivot of 209, which is where I am right now with the timeline. Actually, you know what? That didn't work as expected. Also, I'm not sure I've copied all the keys, so let's go back. No, in fact, I did not. So I'm supposed to end up with this pose. So we close the eyes and then we open up with the idle pose. In here, since I didn't, this anticipation of the blank is just a bit too big, so I'm going to just keep it lower, less of an opening. And I want the eyes to keep looking in the same direction during the anticipation, so maybe I don't even know, I don't even need this long anticipation here. Maybe one frame will be enough. Another thing is, probably I can get away with keeping the same pose for the shape of the eye, and just use the scale. In fact, probably the other way around, right? It needs to get bigger. There you go. So it gets bigger and then it starts the closure. And I can just close. There you go. And open up again. I wonder if I'm looking at it and I wonder if I couldn't just keep this sort of banana shaped eye for the whole duration of the animation. But it's probably a good idea to make a play blast before going further. So I'm going to remove the wireframe on top and make a play blast just to see what I will be seeing in game, more or less. Let's see. There you go. Now let's have a look at this blink. I don't expect much from it. But it is a bit mischievous, and it feels like the character is conjuring something, so that's cool. I wonder if we couldn't maybe keep this sort of banana shape in the eye even during the idle pose. Yes, sorry, I was lost watching it. So let's have a look and see how does it look like when I keep the same pose, the banana shape pose. So I'm not quite sure the director will be happy about keeping this pose for the whole duration of the animation, but it looks mischievous. Let me check the... But none of the character designs has this pose by default, so I'm going to skip it. And maybe I'm going to help a little bit with the eyes geometry as well. And I can raise it up, because the point of view of the game will be from the top down more or less, so this should give the eyes a bit more visibility. You see, they look a lot more appealing. And then I can help during the blink. I would probably have to do a blink also on the opposite side, so that will make the idle animation go a lot longer, which I'm a bit worried about, because that will increase its memory footprint. This is difficult stuff. So maybe in here, in the meantime, while I ponder what to do, I could stretch up the eyes a little bit during the anticipation, and then they should help during the blink. That should give us a lot more flexibility, perceived flexibility in the blink. There you go, and then we want that to go back. Actually, we want only the scale to go back to 0. Maybe I could open up the eyes a bit more with the scale, and then have them settle down again at 1. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think now the blink is a lot more interesting. Now that there is some geometry deformation, it is really a lot more interesting. Probably need to duplicate the pose here so that we go back to the same exact pose we had earlier on. And then we can just, simply speaking, copy these keys. And just paste them on the second blink. I wonder if I'm thinking maybe I should really have the frog. I really need to have the frog also look to the to its right, but I'm just worried this will make a super long idle. It's something that could be solved in with multiple layers in Unity. We could have a short idle in for the body, and then play the facial expressions as we need, and the facial expressions would be really short. But I don't want to add too much overhead for the people who are managing this thing. So I think I will reduce the keys. I will keep a long idle and then reduce the keys. So let's go find again the poses of the idle. Two, four, 3, 1, 1, 7. Okay, cool. Two, 1. I'm trying to find the loop sequence. There you go. When I first animated this in the previous stream, I didn't really have facial expressions I could use. One, 1, 7. Now with facial expressions, it is a lot easier to understand what goes on this character in this character's mind. 32. So now the loop starts at 32. Oh. I'm not sure what went on. Ah, yes, I duplicated also these guys. Okay, so. Okay, so now I need to look sideways to the right of the character. So all I need to do probably is to grab the blink sequence, which I created earlier on, and just place it somewhere over here, for instance. There you go. And this time around I want to end up looking on the right hand side. So I can probably put the pupils on a layer. And just look the opposite way. He looks a bit mischievous. So. There you go. There you go. There you go, and this way he is now looking to the left hand side. Nice. Now of the camera, left hand side of the camera. That means that for the next blink, which happens here, we need to zero out these guys, the pupils. Here's a blink. That's an interesting blink. What's going on? Let's have a look. Oh, I see. Okay. So okay, so I want to connect the two blinks so that they have exactly the same pose. And then as we go into the next blink, I'm going to zero out the pupil so that we change the direction. Yes. There you go. So now we have those three blinks. Now I have to check if this idle is way too active. I am a bit worried, it's way too long. So let's make a play blast again. And see what comes out of it. I was very happy when I started working on a game. I thought, oh, real-time animation, here I come. But nope. So let's have a look. Oop. So the blink is mischievous. The character is very active. There are some interpolation issues in the middle between the poses, so we can investigate those. So in practice here, kinda, I think I already know where this is heading. Okay, so I have to get rid of a few layers. Yes. So 243 and a 244. This one, for now I don't need the spin. So let's merge down the face layer to begin with. And then I will make sure that between the blinks we have exactly the same pose so that I avoid those interpolation that I could see in between key posing. So 78 and 155, they need to be exactly the same pose. Yes, and then between 163 and 1210 I want to check again that we have the same pose, and then we go back to the default. Now I wonder if the defaults could be a bit more a bit less smart looking. So maybe instead of having the pupils parallel, I could try and see what happens if I just move them sideways this way. It's a tough job in my opinion in a way, because we have to be very quick. I mean, as in do a complete set of animations for a character in one afternoon maybe, but at the same time it's the first time we operate this character, so actually it's the second time. I don't know which one. I think I prefer when they are out open. I think it looks less smart. And the only thing is, as I leave the blink, that means that I have to, there you go, to anticipate a little bit the motion of the right pupil to avoid having the right pupil move too much with too much independency if compared to the left one. Maybe I will just lower them down a little bit. I want to see what happens if I rotate them as well. And this is a bit of a tough call again, because I doubt we will ever see them that close in game. So this pose needs to be the same pose that we have on 32, and then it needs to be held. So we will have the character going from a pose in which doesn't look too smart to be a bit more of a smartass. And again, I'm sure the director will have something to say about that, as in they will have their own idea of what this should be, in which case better, because at least we have a direction, so that's why directors are there. No, I'm not happy anymore about having this much movement of the pupils. There you go, before the blink. So now I should get a less smart expression at the beginning, then look somewhere else. It goes back to be a bit not particularly engaged, let's say. So this character will spend some of his time not looking particularly engaged, and then every now and then it will just look sideways. There you go. Maybe to make the character look even less smart, I could make the eyes sort of melt during the idle before the blink. So let's have a look. And as the character does nothing here, I can see whether I can melt its eyes, so to speak. So 1 and 2. I think it would have been better to have a different pivots. So I want to see what happens if I kind of make them roll down the side of the head, just to see what happens there. Zzz, this way. Maybe that's a bit too much. It might be a bit too much, let's see. Maybe they're losing a bit too much cohesion here at the center. At the beginning they are intersecting, so I will try make them keep the center part a bit more connected. Now maybe that's too much, so I'm going to reduce the amount by which they melt away. So they melt down. And then maybe I can have them, as they reopen, I can have them regather composure. Maybe I can even rotate them. to help with the eye line. I'm going to move one a little bit more to the back so that I can rotate it and keep a better plane here, so that you see that if you look at it from the top view, they are looking in one direction. That could help. And then as we blink again, we can go back to the 0 pose. For both. Actually, in fact, I will try direct. Wait, I'm spending way too much time on this animation. There you go. We can try direct the eyes in the direction of the gaze. And then finally, for the last blink, we want to go back to the starting pose. I want to hide that transition between the closing and the opening of the eyes when there is much more variation on the face, so that we won't spot it too much. This last one is not convinced. This one is way too much. So, and also probably should be quicker. There you go, that's better. And then here we want to go back to the default pose, which we do. Let's have a look again. There is a scaling going on now, which I don't understand. So 165, 209, I shouldn't be having that. So I'm just going to duplicate that key. I don't know which point I messed that up, but I clearly did. 165, 209. Let's have a look. So it's melting down, then recovers composure, looks around, and then goes back to melting down. Now that I'm looking sideways, maybe I could help with the head a little bit. So I wonder if I could melt to the back. What would happen there if I did so? So let's see. Maybe I could just melt it down. I don't have... This rig does not have the ability to really scale and compress quite a lot. So I won't be able to do much squash and stretch here. So as we go towards the blink in here, you can maybe go back to the default pose, and maybe we can help with the head look in one direction. So let's see. There you go. And then for the next blink, we can even look in the opposite direction. And then for the final blink, we just melt into the default position again. So let's see. There you go, it looks mischievous and not particularly smart at the same time. Now it looks a little bit too defaulty when it's in the non-smart expression. So what can I do there? Let's see if maybe another expression can help in here. I'm not sure. Because now there's too much contrast between the melted expression, so to speak, and when the frog looks sideways. I'm not sure. I think I might have to go and talk to the director about this to see what they think. You know what, I will do a playblast and I will send it over to the director and let's see what they think, so that we can move on to the next animation. We have a couple of animations to do yet, and I've been on this for about 40 minutes now. So this is going to be frog animidle and the version is 06 mischievous. I hope I'm spelling this right. Hi, Keyframe Monkey. How are you? Welcome and thank you for joining. So I'm still animating for the River Tales video game. I have to do a mischievous looking idol for this frog. But I'm a bit worried this might be a bit too mischievous, so I'm making a playblast and I'm going to post it on the server of the production, and then they will tell me what they think, because it looks fairly mischievous, but I have the feeling that when it goes to the standard pose of the idol and it's not looking at anything in particular, it might be a bit too idle. But let's see, let's have the director have their say. At the end of the day, there's nothing better than getting feedback from those who had the initial vision. Yeah, it's a cute character. In general, the characters of the game are quite cute altogether. So I'm quite happy. I think I'm having fun animating this stuff, so I can't complain at all. So I idle 6 and gameplay animation. Sorry, in the meantime, I'm mixing a bit of recording this live and posting stuff on the production server. So I need to pause for feedback. So I'm posting on the server. There you go. So now the next animation up in line is a croak. So we want this character to croak, and then there is possibly a apart from the croak, there is possibly a hiccup that we have to make. So let's move on. So now we have an idle, then we have the jump which is in control. I think I need to establish the position of the pose of the face a little bit better so that it's going to work for the rest of the animation as well. Okay, and so in the meantime I'm waiting for feedback from the director. And let's see what they say. I'm going to tear off this GUI with the fashion rig in there because I need to make sure that this pose is kept throughout the timeline. While in here, you're kind of losing the pose after 243, I think, and that's because there's a key in here, you see. So I'm going to remove that. That should be enough for us. Okay, and it seems like the director is happy about the animation, so that's cool. It's nice to get approval that quickly. So now let's move on to the next. And here I will have to do some animation for I animated a bit of the throat inflating and deflating. So, but I didn't have the facial expressions the first time around, so I will have to fix that part. So the croaking, so let's do the croaking itself. In here, all this stuff we can finally merge. Finally. On Thursday I also make a stream about concepts which are a bit more high level than just technical concepts for animation. So in fact this Thursday I would like to talk about office politics, workplace politics in animation studios. And not in a negative way, just to see what people think of those. Anybody who has been working in a studio for long enough has seen their fair share of office politics. And some of the office politics are actually positive, I have to say. It depends on what happens as usual. So in here, after 243, we have the beginning of the jump. So I'm going to need to move this stuff to the side. So I'm going to select all the controls of the character plus the face, and then I'm going to copy 243 to the previous frame and paste it there. I'm going to move this guy these guys, sorry, by first by 1 plus equal 1, and then I'm going to deselect what has now become 2, 4, 3, these guys, and I want to move the whole animation by, say, a couple of hundred frames, so plus equal 200. There you go. So 201 frames. That means that this layer that I can't touch, I will need to also, I already moved it, cool. So that if I did everything correctly between 243 and 244 and the jump, there shouldn't be anything happening. That's cool. Cool. So now we can animate the croaking between 243 and 444. So let's do the croak 243. And I guess the croak will start probably with some sort of, I will need my Wacom in this because I want to plan a little bit. So the croak will have, I guess, some pose, which is the standard, the starting pose, the rest pose. There you go. Let's see if we can have it. There you go. Okay, cool. So the standard pose will be this one. And now the problem with the croaking is that croaking doesn't happen the way we expect. So I was doing some research earlier on, and a lot of frogs don't actually croak by opening the mouth. So that this one, for instance, this guy is actually croaking. And they don't really open the mouth or do anything. They just go there and stay there and vibrate the membrane of the throat, and that's about it. So while some other frogs, like this one, which is kind of cute,
like this desert rain frog,
they actually open the mouth. So I have to find some sort of after way through between the two things. So maybe I will try and compress and see what I can do. I mean, a very basic compression, squash and stretch thing, really. So for which, for instance, maybe I could go low and make the belly quite big there, and change the expression of the mouth and have the eyes compressed. Something like this, I guess. So I would have 1, 2, and then I would have, I guess, an extended pose. I can't really stretch this rig almost at all, and then in the extended pose I would have the actual croak, and then I will go and repeat the loop, right? Just copy this key and go back to repeat the loop. Let's see. Let's see with just the grease pencil what we have in there, and if that makes sense. I made it with the grease pencil because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time animating stuff in 3D without even knowing if this makes sense. So this, I mean, this very simple planning that I have in here could work as a croak. If I imagine doing a sound like rabbit, something like that, something like that. Let's try it again. Rabbit. It could work. It could. I guess it could work. So I think I will try it. And in terms of timing, one thing that I could possibly do is to keep the anticipation a little bit longer. Jump up, keep the up a little bit longer. Let's see. I'm not sure, because another request of the director is that we do a hiccup animation. So I don't know which way is the better way to go around this, because I will have the hiccup to have a similar pattern, I guess. So let's see. This could work as a croak. Let's plan the hiccup as well, just so that we can tell what's the difference there and if they will work together or if they will look like the same animation. It's a lot of work for something which is just a secondary character, but it could be good if they look if it looked okay. So for the hiccup, let me try and do it myself first. Let me act it out. If I have a hiccup. Okay, so maybe I found it. So the hiccup is a lot less in control, I think. So maybe for the hiccup I can maybe, I'm thinking of having the character lean forward as if they were dozing off. You know how people at school sometimes fall asleep, so they gently lean forward. And maybe I could keep the eyes looking up. Let's see if that's a thing. In the meantime, I'm talking to the director again. So there you go. So maybe I could just doze off as I move forward, and then again I could compress. Let's see. So I could compress down here, middle, and twist, and have the belly come out there. Let's see if this is something that could work. And then the eyes would compress. There, I'm not sure what I'm drawing here. And then I want to, once again, stretch. I guess I want to stretch with two poses, one with the head and the eyes still down. And then another one with a reverse of the curve up there. So this guy, I don't need it really. Almost as if the head is the last thing that comes up. And then the mouth would open. I don't know really what I've been drawing. Let's have a look. So let's press play. It doesn't quite, it looks a bit too soft on the way up for it to be a hiccup. It almost looks like it's singing. Now the hiccup looks, the first half of the planning looks a lot more like the hiccup than the second one. So maybe instead of moving up and arching back, and I'm going to just stretch up straight. I'm not even sure I can do that with this character, to be honest. With the rig, I have to try it. I don't think I can, but let's see. So and then I'll go back to the default idle pose. So let's see. This could be the top stretched pose. The extreme could be held a lot longer. Yeah, they look super similar. Maybe another solution could be to shake the head. Let's see if there are some hiccup videos online. And also maybe there's some hiccup animation somewhere. Just to see how people made hiccups. Ice cream. There's no one hiccuping online. What's going on? No, okay, so I can't do research live. Let's review the animations. This one could be the croaking. That's fine. I'm thinking maybe as we go up, the way we go up now is faster. It could work, but maybe I could shake the head a little bit, so the head middle line would be a lot more to camera left. And then it will stretch, and the middle line would go towards camera right. And then it would come back camera left, and we go down back down to the default pose. This is way too short, so let's try and see. It could potentially work if we nodded. I will try it and see how it goes. So let's do the croaking, and then we will do the hiccup. So for the croaking, we need a pause onto everything, 2-4-3, just for safety, and then we need the anticipation on the croaking. So the anticipation is going to have the character compressed down. It would be cool if we could scale it up, but can't quite scale anything there. So we're going to call in the belly to help us. There you go. It's going to provide us with some sort of effect that will compensate the volume loss. Something like this, maybe. And for the mouth, I can have maybe this expression rotated. And even made longer, why not? There you go. So this could be the charging position, let's call it that way, for the Croak. Let's have a look at the bum. The bum maybe could extend to the back a little bit, and the two buttocks there, I could maybe... Oh, they don't seem to be scaling right now. That's a shame. So we'll have to fix that on the rig. So we'll just move them out 1 and 2 to the side. There you go. So we go down and we... There you go, that could work. Maybe that's a bit too much distance between two buttocks. There you go, something like this could work. Maybe I could cheat the position of the clavicles, just to have the arms stick out a little bit. No, that's too much again. I just want to avoid a bit of the intersection with the belly, so we'll move out the elbow. Let's see if I can. I'm not sure we'll be able to do much about that, but maybe I can grab the controllers of the hands and increase the length of the arm. There you go, just for this pose. Oh, and to make the leg take part in this as well, I can maybe move them out a little bit. So there you go, so we are anticipating. Maybe as we anticipate, we move the eyes even more apart. And we can maybe compress them down quite a lot, down into the skull of the frog. There you go. So this will be the pose, and maybe we can try and see what happens if we squeeze the pupils. And rotate them at an odd angle to see whether it looks too odd. Maybe I can just see what happens if I squeeze them. This way it could work. And then for the facial expression, let's see if we have anything. Something like this maybe will work. let's see, something like this might work. And this is going to be my anticipation pose. Could work. Key on everything before it's too late. Just a second before keying everything, because I have a layer there which is for another animation. I can't really touch it, so gotta be careful not to key stuff. There you go. So key on everything, and then we go on to the next pose. The next pose is a super Tony, I could try Giphy for the hiccup. That's such a good idea. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, so let's try on Giphy. Hiccup. This one could be okay. Thank you, Tony. I have to think of it. I will think of this thing as I animate the croaking. So now I have to go from fully compressed to stretched, but then I have to go back to the default pose, right? So maybe it makes sense to just duplicate the pose and go back to the default pose already with the whole character. There you go, this one. Oh wait, it's not really that one. So I'm going to just duplicate the pose. There you go, now it's the same pose. So this way, I think I'm crashing. Let me save. Am I crashing, Maya? Tell me. Okay, no, I wasn't. Okay, cool. So this way, if I already make the landing pose, that means that I can just go to 268 and use the in-between that Maya automatically generated to give me the pose I need, or the starting pose for the pose I need anyway. So for the face, I really want to go there, and in here I want to see what happens. Oh yes, just a second. It's the cat. I'm not sure you can even hear it. So there you go. Let me zero out, and let's move up. Let's see if I can scale at least the... It's so strange, I can't even scale that. I can't really scale much with this rig. So let me go back. There you go. And with the arms, I want to reduce the length. There you go. And I want to maybe lower the clavicle. There you go. And the legs are going to be closer to the center line of the body. So we are going to have the compression and then the extension. It's a shame I can't preserve the volume the way I'd like to. Let me check what's the behavior of the joints. Okay, so segment scale compensate is off indeed. Okay, cool. So it's a shame I can't scale anything at all there. Because it's very easy to go off character, if you see what I mean. So off the model sheet, off the model sheet. What am I saying? There you go. I'm going to stretch the eyes. And for the eye expression, for the pupil expression, I want to I'm doing a face to try and imagine. Let's see what happens if I make the pupils real big. So I'm going to compress, open up. Now they don't look so cool if they're too big. I find it really difficult to do an animation that in which I use a character for the first time and a rig, well, for the second time, and a rig for the second time as well. There you go, something like this, I guess. There's just so much I can make this expression big on the face, mainly because the face actually has geometry down there, which I could maybe skin a little bit better to give me a bit more range. Okay, something like this will probably work. Again, it's a secondary character. So anticipation, extension, and then we go back down. Now, I didn't really design the breakdowns, and I probably will have to. In fact, I have to. There's no really much choice in there. So I'm going to reach the top pose a bit faster there. And stay there on the top pose for longer. For the face, I probably am going to be in that top pose to begin with at frame 264. And I want to stay down in the anticipation also a bit longer. So I'm going to keep that pose for longer. Probably that means I will go down there faster. So now probably it's a good idea to save a selection set for the whole frog. Now I'm doing some sculpting of poses and breakdowns. So I'm going to just when I plan the animation so roughly, after I'm past the phase in which I have the extreme poses and I'm happy with those, I tend to duplicate the poses I want to keep for longer, so that if I pass the spline I don't get a floaty spline. So that means there you go, we stretch up, and then for the before going back down to the default pose of the character, I think we have to overshoot it on the way down. And to speed up the animation, I can maybe grab a pose in which I was already overshooting at the beginning and pass through that very same pose as a base for my animation. And then change that pose a little bit. I can play the same trick I played in the other animations there. So now the character will go down and then it will go back to its default pose. The belly can already retract really there, so it goes down and jumps back. Now I will actually need more poses in here, one more. So as we go down, the head will be the last, and the eyes as well, the last guys to come back down, and the eyes and the head will keep going forward, the eyes more than everything else. And then finally, as a breakdown towards the top, the eyes will be those who will stay behind the most. In fact, if I had a reparent script, I could just use that to do the overlap. There you go. And then they will just go back to their pose. eyes, and then the idle will start again. The head and the eyes will be the latest. So now I can already evaluate the animation this way and see whether this looks like a croak. It could work. But there was one thing about the pose I designed which had the eyes a lot more forward and on the way down. I'm a bit resilient to do that because the game is viewed from the top view mostly, so I won't rotate the eyes too much forward, but I can try and see what happens anyway. There you go. And then in here, one thing I can do to make this anticipation feel not like a dead hold is to have the head and the eyes moving forward even during the anticipation. Maybe even the chest. The chest could rotate ever so slightly and move forward. So we go down. And then maybe as we go up to create more of an effect of a spring, I can delay. That thing I don't want to do because I want to keep them for the hiccup. Maybe I can keep the belly more inflated for longer. So the belly could be the part that I am delaying instead of the head. There you go. And the eyes, I want them to be the last ones to reach the pose. Let's try and see whether this looks any good. Yeah, this could work, I think, as a croaking. I just need to keep. I think I need to keep the top pose for longer. So as I reach the top pose in there, I don't want the animation to feel wavy all the time, so I will just maybe reach, let's see if I can reach the pose faster. Yes, and then keep it there for longer. And in the meantime, the eyes, I want them to move a little bit more to the back. And then as we go down, one thing that I want to do is to delay the eyes as much as I can. And maybe even the head, why not? And then the eyes, as usual, will be the last guys to settle. Let's have a look. That could work. Not really getting super real-time feedback here. I want to delay the way the eyes move up, so that they will be the last thing to stretch up and down. And if they stretch down, I maybe want to squash them as well. There you go. And then we'll zero them out again. So let's have a look. There you go. And now it's happily croaking. Now the facial expressions aren't working too well, but I think I can reuse some stuff from the previous animation. Let's see. So, or actually I don't even need that. So in general, it's a good idea in my opinion to start any facial change with some sort of blink. So I'm going to maybe give it a change here, and I'm going to blink in maybe 1 and go down to the pose in 2 frames. So 1, 2 frames, and maybe before we begin the croaking, I could actually squeeze the eyes a lot more, so the eyes will be anticipating the croak, and I'm going to keep this pose for longer. And then I'm going to open up. There you go, something like this might work. And another thing, as they close down, maybe I could have a couple of frames of blink, and I can achieve, in a rig like this one, I can achieve that by, again, this is the pupils, yes, by changing the pupil size to square, or even I don't even need that now that I think of it. I can just scale up like I did earlier on. So I can scale up the eyes to an immense size. There you go, something like this. Maybe the second frame of the blink, I don't want to fill up the eye with black already. There you go, something like this will work. And then I'm going to keep this pose that I found for longer, and then we progressively go back to a pose which is a bit more human for this character as far as size of pupils are concerned. There you go, something like this. There you go. Now let's have a look and see how this looks like. Then I want to have the pupils go back to be divergent in the moment where that transition can be seen. So here at the top, for instance, that seems like a good transition to have. So I'm going to maybe have the transition happen here at the top while keeping them small. So here that could be hopefully seen a little bit better rather than when the head moves a lot. And then as we go down, we could even delay, and we could even cheat and stretch the pupils on the way down. And delay the settle down of the pupil. There you go, something like this should hopefully go and work. And for the mouth, we are going to go from the default pose, and as the belly inflates, you need to move up the mouth, make it thinner, and if I can introduce some stretch, I will do it, but maybe I will delay it to when the belly is actually pushing. There you go. And then we go to the next sprite, and as we are down, I can actually stretch it as much as I can sideways. There you go, so it's preparing. And then as we go back up, I can maybe first of all keep the mouth down. That's too low. And then maybe open one frame earlier. Hi, Nicola. There you go. And in here, I have a transition which is happening too early. There you go. And so let's see. And then maybe again I can delay this mouth. I am very limited with the stuff I can do with the mouth itself. And after I'm at the top, I can maybe move the mouth a little bit higher up and scale it down. Yes. And then as we go down, we need to go down to the default pose, which is 281. So this stuff we don't really need. And I need a transition. You're a rigging artist, but it's hard to find a job. Any advice? Well, the first thing I would consider is, well, where are you based geographically to begin with? And then there are many different kinds of rigs, but one thing that of showreels for rigging, I don't know, have you ever worked before, or is this the first work you have, Nicola? Nicola in the chat is saying that they are struggling to find a job in rigging. So they're based in India. This would be, let's say you managed to get this job, would this be your first job? So we go down, compress. Don't mind the color of the mouth. It's going to be different. I'm going to fix it. There you go. And I'm going to reduce a little bit of the smile at the beginning. I want the transition between the two sprites to be a bit softer. Yes, first job. So one thing that I've heard professional riggers complaining about quite a lot about juniors in rigging is that juniors come with a showreel that have maybe a showreel that has maybe a complete character rigged, because maybe they followed a tutorial and they rigged a complete character, but if you start in a company, you won't be asked to rig a complete character from scratch. The first tasks that you will be asked to do are props, probably simple stuff. So I think it would be better if in a showreel for rigging there were some demonstrations on how people rigged a prop so that it was easy to animate. That's really, really important. There you go. In the meantime, I'm checking the Croak. I think I can make the way up faster and the eyes settle better. So they are a bit too mobile in the end. It would be great to have a much bigger mouth, but I just can't do it. The rig doesn't have that capability, so I will go and speed up the transition. So Nicola, also another thing that I found very useful in working, not in rigging but in animation more specifically, is check the showreels of juniors which get hired and see what's on their showreels. Because very often we have a showreel which is not competitive and we don't even know that. So check who's been hired somewhere recently, check their showreels and see if you are competitive. I mean, if your stuff is at their level, because that might also be one of the reasons why you are struggling. Sometimes we don't know where we stand really. But yes, I would definitely say prop rigging, and prop rigging made in such a way as to make animation simple, the process simple for animators. Remember that if animators work faster, then they're happier, the company is happier because you do more work in less time. It's a win-win really. In the meantime, I'm speeding up the Croak on the way up. And then I'm going to reduce the movement forward for the two eyes. Quite a lot, in fact. I think that could work. It looks like it's croaking. Yeah. And then, since I don't want the two eyes to move in a unison, I don't know if I can say that in English, I think I probably can. I'm going to grab one eye and offset it by one frame. So that they won't move together, or as in perfectly together. I still want to keep some continuity of plane between the two things. There you go. Find it very hard to animate while talking about what I'm doing. It takes me forever. There you go. So now let's have a look at the playblast once more. I don't really want to stay here and spend too much time on it now, because it's past 1 hour and a half and I just made 2 different animations. So one animation every 45 minutes is not good enough for secondary characters, in my opinion. So there's something going on with the eyes, but rather than that, it looks like it's croaking. checking if there's something else that I have to do in there. Not very happy with the motion. The question, Nicola is asking a question, as a rigger, is it compulsory or complementary to have animation skills? So in theory, as a rigger, you do not have to have animation skills. But, I mean, hear me out. From an animator's perspective, you are the rigger and you are designing, imagine that the animator is the pilot, the rigger is the guy who designs the car. Now, how can you design a car that it's easy to operate if you don't know how to drive it? So in my opinion, a rigger, or rather the best riggers I've met, let's put it down that way, are those who actually know how to animate a couple of things. It doesn't mean you have to do Pixar style animation, it just means you have to know what the process is and how complicated it is to do an animation and so forth. Because if you know how to animate, then you will know how to design a system that it's easy to animate. Whereas if you end up rigging something without knowing how to animate, well, it's how do you know that something will be ergonomically viable, so to speak? Imagine that as a rigger you're designing a car for the animator to drive. And so you're responsible for deciding, for instance, where the lever will go, where the pedals will go, how will the steering wheel work. And that kind of stuff, in my opinion, requires a little bit of understanding of animation, but nothing really out of the ordinary, I would say. It's not about designing animation that is something you can use in a movie and looks like a Pixar animation, but I would say animate a bouncing ball, a flower sock, and a ball with a tail, just to see how it feels to animate. You don't need to like it, just so that you know. There you go. So that's cool. So that's the animation of the croaking, and now we have to do one last animation, which I worked, which is the hiccup. Remember, I worked in a company once, I remember, where the riggers were technically extremely good. I mean, they could do amazing stuff with the software, but the rig wasn't really easy to operate. That's why I think the way I think about rigging. So you can have a beautiful machine which is still too difficult to operate as far as animation is concerned. And that means that at the end of the day, the animator has a beautiful rig in front of their eyes as far as technology is concerned, but very, very little in the way of operability, ergonomics. So I really suggest a rigger knows a little bit about animation. And the other way around, I think animators should know about rigging at least a little bit, just so that they don't need to be babysat through every rig. I think it would be a valuable skill. And also in an ideal world, that riggers and animators do discuss the requirements of each other department. So the animator will say, I would like to have a control that does the squash, and the rigger would say, in which way do you want that control to be operated? Do you want a control that translates vertically and that gives you the operation you want? Do you want one that rotates? What do you want? So it's a conversation that is ongoing between the two departments, and it's rightly ongoing. I mean, it makes sense that it goes that way. So yes, learn about one other department. So I'm preparing a stream for Thursday in which I want to discuss with Max and Francesca office politics and workspace politics. And during that stream, and so I was reading around, and one of the things that seemed to come afloat very often in terms of dynamics in a company is that you really need to build a network inside the company, and And before you can talk to any department or ask for anything, it seems like it's very healthy to know that department, to know what that department needs, because you can't really ask for anything if you don't know what are the priorities of another department, for instance, or the departments on which you depend upon. And if you don't know what are the priorities of the department that depends on you, for instance. So it's going to be very interesting, I think. And as a rigger, that translates again into knowing a little bit of animation. And as an animator, that must mean, in my opinion, that you need to know at least the basics of rigging. Just the basics. You know, how to do constraints, how constraints work, nothing exoteric. I mean, if you're hired in a company to do animation, usually you're not asked to do rigging. But I remember that I was animating a snowboarding Yeti once many years ago, and I had to rig the scene because the rigging department gave me a snowboard and a Yeti, and that was it. Go. So I made up my own rig to support that. I mean, it was okay. It's not. I mean, I don't even think that the rigging department was supposed to do much more than that, to be honest. So I'm animating the hiccup in here, and for the hiccup I have an anticipation that goes down. And I don't want the anticipation to be too similar to the previous anticipation, so I'm going to make sure that the two poses are different, and I want the anticipation of the hiccup to look a lot more out of control. So I'm going to change the facial expression. And then maybe as we go down this time around, I'm going to try and see what happens if I make the pupils a lot more cross-eyed. And I would say if you are from India, I would consider, Nicola, I would consider really Fiverr as an option for rigging, or any of those online platforms. So there are in the world a lot of lower specs productions that need rigging but don't really have a huge amount of budget for rigging. And so in practice they can't afford to hire a rigger from Europe, for instance, or the US, but they can afford to hire a rigger from a nation where the cost of life is a bit lower. And for instance, I worked in a production one where the rigger was from Pakistan, and we would get the rigs through the email, really, and the guy would be working remotely. I didn't even know, to date I still don't know who that guy was. And the rig was having some problems, but it was working for the production, and it was in line with what the production needed. In the meantime, I'm trying to create a facial expression that is a bit less off the symmetry, a bit more off the symmetry, so that it doesn't feel like it's too much in control. In fact, maybe I can even try and see what happens if I raise the eyes. So, and remember, I want to make sure that the two anticipation poses don't look anything alike, so to speak. So yeah, that could work maybe. And let's frog. So we have the anticipation, and then I want to find the resting pose again, which is here, so that I have a position to go back to. There you go, this one. And then I want to do the extreme on the way up, the top extreme, this guy. And just like before, lower. But if you struggle, I have several people, especially in the past years. Now it's a bit more difficult because in Europe it's a bit easier to find jobs in the past months, in my opinion. But I had people asking me about why don't they find a job, and it's often the case of checking your showreel against other people's showreel and seeing what's in their showreels that you don't have. And for rigging, as far as I can understand anyway, it's better to talk to a professional rigger that will give you, actually write to professional riggers on LinkedIn and ask them what do they think of their showreel, what do they think it's missing in your showreel, for instance. That's a good idea, I think. But I was saying, you should really check what a professional showreel contains, and think of it in terms of rigging, as in rigging is there to solve an issue. So which issues does your rig solve? Because if your showreel is containing the result of a tutorial in which they show you how to rig a character and that's it, well, you don't necessarily solve a problem, because there are auto rigs, for instance. So also check what's in your showreel. For me, it's very difficult to give advice on this. Ask on LinkedIn, ask somebody who's been rigging for a long time. Also check on LinkedIn people who have just been hired and see what they have in their showreel. Even ask them what they think. In general, you can, these days you can write a supervisor and ask them, hey, I want to do visual effects rigging. Do you think my reel is strong enough? What would you add to my reel? What would you want to see in my reel? In the meantime, as I do the extreme, I'm thinking that I could make the eyes spin around this way as we do the hiccup. That should give us enough unicity. Also, I have a sprite, there you go. And I should have a very basic character design. There you go for the... So maybe I can go even smaller, the eyes. But I want to keep them asymmetric. And I always want to compare the stretchy pose I have for the croaking, this one, with the stretchy pose I have for the hiccup. And you see that in terms of body, they are fairly similar. So maybe I will make one a lot more asymmetric than the other. There you go, so that they have a different silhouette from above. Okay, so best of luck, Nicola. And then we come back down. Okay, cool. So now we want to, remember we had an anticipation that was going down in 2 beats. So one, and then it was compressing and twisting. So I'm going to grab the frog, create a pose which is exactly like the one of the anticipation. And then in this anticipation I will start going down already, but the head will be delayed and it will start twisting this way. And I want the mouth to really compress quite a lot in there. In fact, probably a good idea so you can ask Nomon, yes. I don't really know how the reviews work, but ask them, I mean, ask whoever is in the industry, but go on LinkedIn, find people who work in the industry. If the people from Nomon that are giving you advice are working in the industry, that's amazing. So definitely ask them. But in general, ask people who work in the industry you shouldn't rely on any single voice, not even just mine. So ask a plurality of voices. You will hear, maybe sometimes you will hear opinions that maybe don't line up one to another, but that's okay. I mean, there are also opinions in the world, so that's great. Okay, so now you see I have an anticipation that goes down, and then the head is still, it's independent from the body. You see it's a very different action than the previous one. In the previous one, the anticipation was happening almost all at once, and then the head was preparing and going up. In this new animation, we go down, then the head almost loses control if compared to the body, and then it opens up for a hiccup. So the one thing I maybe want to have in there is a lot more cross-eyed. I really want to have the feeling, give the feeling that the frog is out of control. I'm not sure I'm still in character, so there you go. And so we have the two anticipation poses there, and then we go up, and I want to go up a lot quicker, so we'll go up in, we'll try to go up in, this is client work, Nicola. Yes, so this is work that I'm performing for a video game called Reboot Tales the Game, and I already animated for these people, and yeah, it's I played the prototype. Hi Coco. And I had fun, which is why I joined the project. If you want to keep in touch with them, you can sign up in their newsletter, and you will know when they release the demo. I think they're preparing for a Kickstarter, so they are being kind enough to let me animate and publicly. So I won't be able to show you guys the bosses of the game. I'm sorry about that, because that would have been a lot of fun. But I can't give people any spoilers because the game is still in the workings. So right now I'm animating this secondary character hiccuping. So I think I want to have this guy go a lot up higher there, and so the idea, the plan of this animation was to have the head go up last and then twist on the way up. Let's see what the poses are doing. So we go down in anticipation, we go up with push up, maybe we can delay the hand a lot more, and then as we are up, we almost spit in one direction if you think of it. Maybe one thing that we can do, since we are rotating the head in one direction, is not to go up already towards the camera, right? But leave this to a motion that happens later. Let's see what we have in here. So 281. Okay, so this could work like a hiccup. Let's have a look. I think the anticipation is too slow, and I also want to compare it to the croaking. So the croaking works, I think. The hiccup has an anticipation which is a bit too slow, so let's work on the anticipation. So maybe one thing that I could do is go down in anticipation and keep it for longer, and then I will use this kind of hit as an anticipation of the way up. Yeah, it's super low poly. It is. Thank you, Coco. The model you see is super ultra low poly, but it's good enough. So, and then I really need to track the arc of the chest on the way up. So maybe I could even translate it and then just have it arc later. And then let's see what happens if I just let it interpolate there. Maybe I could just delay the chest a little bit. Yes, in fact, we need it low poly, because otherwise, Coco is saying that it's fine to have it low poly because it will save RAM. Totally agree. I'm a bit worried, to be honest, about all the sprites we're using for the face, because I don't know what's the RAM footprint of them. So I'm really waiting for some proper tests to be made in there. We do not want to discover that it doesn't work once we've made all the animation with this rig. So I'm a bit worried about that. So in the meantime, I was saying the way the frog goes down is a bit slow, so I'm going to make it faster and see what happens. So this is the croak, and this is the second one is the hiccup. Let's see, Coco, do you know about game development? I'm always curious to know more about it, because I did some game animation in the past, but I was never... When you work for indie games, you have a much closer contact with the developers, and in the previous games I worked, I was practically never talking to developers, so everything would be done by other people, not by me. So I didn't know. We're using CPU or GPU? I don't know. If you're using, Coco is saying, are we using GPU or CPU to calculate this thing? Well, the game is supposed to land, I think, on a Nintendo Switch. So, and then Nintendo Switch has a GPU available. So I imagine it will go on GPU as well. So I think we will store, I think because I don't know, I'm not part of the development per se. I think they will go and store the sprites on the GPU. So we go down in the meantime. And one thing I can do in here to give the mouth a little bit more life is rotate by 180 degrees every other frame. This way I think I should be able to obtain a zigzagging effect. You see that? With a single sprite I can make the face, the mouth kind of burpy, if you see what I mean. So let's see if that's the thing. I really need to do a play blast here because I'm not getting real-time feedback. So let's do a play blast. And see. I think there are some poses that we need to fix. Okay, thank you, Coco. So Coco is saying that the Nintendo Switch can handle files which are up to 6 gigabytes. I think I read that the max was 4 gigabytes of memory usage for the Nintendo Switch. I think I need to keep that up pose longer. I'm not very happy about this animation, so let's go up. I will select the body itself. And then this guy goes. I want to see what happens if I go up higher, if I stay there for longer. And there you go, let's see what happens. Zoop. And let's see also, I want to animate the eyes rolling around as I am up on the top. I'm trying to understand what's the delay between me talking and the chat. So Coco says Mario Odyssey has a schnitzel ton of polys and RAM will slow down if too many large fire are used, I believe. Yeah, I think so too. If you bump too many big files in the RAM, you're going to, I mean, on a regular PC you swap, right? You start swapping and everything becomes super slow because now you're using storage as a way of ramming, let's say. But so I think there will need to be a limit on the size of things. But as I said, I'm not really the one looking into it. But since I was proposing the sprite approach for animating the eyes, this is Maya. There you go. So I'm animating the eyes rolling. I want to see if that's even visible. And I want to roll above the eyes. And then I need to do some there you go. So now it's I would need to have maybe a little bit of a blink on the way down. And certainly I don't want to rotate the mouth that way. So will delay the mouth on the way up. And then at a certain point, I will change the sprite. So Coco, you've been using Blender for about 1.5 years. I think there may be no need to go back to Maya. Much depends on, in my opinion, much depends on what you're trying to do, what's the industry, and what are the specs. Because I think Blender has a bunch of very good tools for animation already. So I tried it, and I think it's pretty mature for something that you would consider a free software, right? And down here. No, when I okay, so that's Coco. Tony is asking a very good question. So, do I listen to music or watch something when I'm animating? And the answer is no, I can't. And I can't do that because I get deconcentrated really quite a lot. So even doing a live stream, now I have some music because of the live stream, but I wouldn't otherwise, and having to explain stuff during the live stream makes the animation go twice as slow. So this kind of animation, for me, taking 2 hours to make one idle, a croaking action, and a hiccup is a bit long for a secondary character. So I have music right now only because of the stream. That's the only reason why. But no, normally, no, I don't. However, if I am, say, cleaning mockup data, so say you are animating mockup, then I do listen to music on certain parts of the task. Not every single part, but some part of the process I do with music. And I would lie if I said that I didn't watch something while while animating in certain situations. But it's something I do mostly for very repetitive tasks. So if I'm not planning animation and I'm just cleaning mockup, then I may even listen to something. But in general, no, I just find it's too distracting. And in here I need to design a better transition between this expression and the final one. And Coco, you're asking what's the engine game? It's Unity. The game engine we're using for this game is going to be Unity, which again, for me it's a bit of a shame because I got used to Unreal in the past 2 years. I'm not really a video game developer or anything, but due to the fact that Unreal can render stuff, I ended up rendering stuff in Unreal. So I ended up learning Unreal in the past years. I used Unity something like 10 years ago, I think, for a few projects. I even scripted a couple of things in Unity. So in the meantime, while I'm discussing this, I'm still animating, except I'm not talking about it anymore, which I should. So let's maybe give the eyes a little bit more of anticipation so that they start, so that the pupils start earlier in their movement. There you go. And maybe I could even Coco is asking, is there any reason why I use Maya instead of Blender? I would like to say it's a choice, but it's not. In practice, if you started animating like I did 20 years ago, you had choices between, essentially it was Maya and 3D Studio Max, although my first job was on Lightwave 3D. So I learned all of these tools on different productions, and Blender wasn't a thing in the industry. I mean, Blender has been around for a long time, but it was never really employed in the industry in a very heavy way. Now it's definitely a lot more widespread. So in practice you will find out that all the people my age, they use Maya, most of them anyway, unless they willingly transitioned to Blender. So and then the reason why I'm not using Blender right now is because I started with Maya long ago, and I didn't want to take on this project in Blender because I needed to rig the character as well. So I didn't really want to risk rigging a character in a software I didn't know, facing a bunch of bugs I didn't know about. If it were about just doing animation, I would have probably switched to Blender for this project. In the meantime, I really want to compress the eyes a lot here. Just for a couple of frames. Maybe I could even try and make them look towards the inside and see what happens. Yes, that could work. Maybe rotation wise in here I could delay them a little bit. Okay, so now I think it's time to call it a day. Let's see. So I will make a play blast from what I think will be the point of view of the game, more or less. The camera is not final, but the point of view of the game is something like this. Coco is asking, are you using any type of easing, like in or out? It's just linear. By default in Maya you get auto tangents. So I will show them in a second. Let me just check the animation. So we have the Croak. Yeah, okay, so we have the Croak, you see, and then we have the hiccup. I have to say that the way the pupils are spinning in the Croak is just too fast. And I could probably leave the hiccup a bit higher. So the easing you get by default in Maya when you animate is that you get from the auto tangents. The auto tangents are quite smart. They are not brilliant, but they are quite okay. So what they do is, you see that they try to ease for you towards the next pose, and those are the tangents I'm using by default. For this kind of animation anyway. I use stepped tangents. I use stepped only as the hiccup looks more like a burp. No offense taken, Coco, but it's fine with me. It's not supposed to be a hiccup that repeats itself forever. So, in fact, it could work as a burp. So I'm fine with it. I agree with you. In fact, if I wanted to make a hiccup that repeats itself, I would have to animate a loop, and that would be like hic, this kind of stuff. And I just don't need that. The director was, I think, fairly flexible in its description of what this hiccup should be, and it was something more along the lines of a burp, but I just didn't express myself very precisely. And so I was saying, the roll of the eyes is way too fast in here, so I can maybe So, Anirudh, welcome aboard, by the way. Oh wow, it's So Anirudh is saying, can I ask you an off-topic question? I recently got a chance to work for an upcoming TV show in my country and might end up leading a team there since they are pretty new. That's cool. It's a big step up from what you're currently doing as a freelancer. The problem is just their test and looking at their rigs and the demand of 40 seconds in a 24 hours animation test. So they have no idea. So you think they might have no idea about animation. Well, if they ask for 40 seconds of animation in 24 hours, and I mean 24 hours as in 3 working days, or as in from one day to another, and you're having doubts whether they will be able to pay your salary if they shut down. And what do I think? Is it worth taking a big promotion to a company that you know in your heart isn't going to last long and their show will suck? It's a long question, don't worry about that though, and it's very interesting. I found myself in a similar situation once. I was introduced to a company where I would have been given a pretty higher role, a much higher role. And I remember from one day to another. So 40 seconds in just one day, it's rather, unless you're doing very, very basic animation, it's a bit too much. Consider that TV series usually go at around, say, 12 to maybe 20 seconds per day, depending on the complexity of the scene. So asking for 40, unless the characters are very, very simple, like there are no fingers, very little facial animation, it's really a lot of animation to churn. It's not a trivial amount of animation what they are asking for, but without seeing the specs of the project, it's difficult to say. And just to give you an example, I worked on a project that had very, very simple animation, and I could put out, I don't know, easily maybe 40-60 seconds per day of animation, because it was really, really simple, really simple stuff. So per se, a request of 40 seconds per day, it sounds high, but it really depends on the complexity of the show. So it's very difficult for me to say it's too much, too little, but it's definitely, by default, it would be considered pretty high. But if the show is very simple, that would be considered okay. In terms of can they pay, can they not pay, if you're going from freelancer to that role, well, you have to look at it in a number of ways. If that company goes upside down, they bankrupt and the project goes nowhere, you go back to being a freelancer. And to you, it doesn't make much of a difference. The real problem, of course, is what if they don't pay? And that's a very good question. So you're saying you're also Anirudh is saying, I'm really nowhere near as good as anyone. It's been 5 months. So you would have been 5 months into the industry and then offered a step up, and you're kind of supervising a project, I guess. And yeah, I mean, if a company hires someone who's a junior to give them a very high role, they might not know what they're doing. or they really trust this guy and they have very good advisors that tell them to trust this guy. But usually that's more of a sign of a company not knowing the very basics of animation. And so with these companies, you also have to move to another city. With these companies, it's always a risk, because in animation, if a company does a big mistake, they don't last for long, because they burn through money so quickly that they can't really last for very long. So I totally understand your situation. But I wouldn't know. I remember at the beginning I went wherever, really, and that's because I just wanted to do animation. So I grabbed whatever option I could grab. So I find it very difficult to tell you take it or not take it. If you don't know if they will be able to pay, and you will never know. If in any situation you never quite know if a company will be able to pay. I mean, the only way you know if a company is going to be able to pay is by tracking their history, so to speak. Did they always pay, for instance? And that's how you know. But you cannot tell in advance. It's difficult. If it's a new company and they don't know what they're doing and they're just burning through money, they might as well go bankrupt. In Italy, when I started, it was very common for companies to open up. They didn't quite know the trade very well, but that was normal. And then they would close within a matter, shut down within a matter of months very often, or never to be heard again sometimes. Yes, it's okay, Anirudh. I mean, I'm just trying to, since in Italy at the beginning we used to go through similar situations. I actually understand where you're coming from. It's a difficult situation. At the time, I would have gone there to that new place, new company, just for the sake of it, just because I wanted to do it. And sometimes I had to sue the companies. To track a history of a company, a good idea is to go on LinkedIn, see which people worked on it, or see reels from people who worked in a certain companies and share the same projects, and ask them, especially if they're no longer working for the company, ask them, were they paid? How did it work with them? Did they have to chase the money? So I came to a certain point in which, before accepting a job, I would ask people who worked in that company to see if they were paid. And that's how you track history, or you Google stuff. But in practice, for a small company, you're just hitting the market. If you Google, you don't find much. So the best idea is to find someone who knows someone who has been working there, or go on LinkedIn and find people who have been working there and they no longer work there, and be ready for what you will hear, because some people may have left not in an amicable terms. So maybe they're just angry and they will tell you the company sucks, but maybe the company does not suck. Is that they had a bad experience with the company, so now they don't want you to go there because they are resentful. And that's also something you have to take into account. So I can't really say for sure, but that would be one way of tracking the company and trying to understand. But Anirudh, keep me updated about the choice. I'm really curious to know where this goes. And think about another thing. Let's say that you move to a new place and you are, you become lead animator or animation supervisor. If you're a junior, well, the fact that you become animation supervisor doesn't mean much anyway, because they will watch your showreel anyway, and they will know that you're still too young for that. But it always helps to have a title if the showreel is good enough. The problem with these companies is that your showreel may never be good, because the work that the company does may not ever be good. So it's a tough choice. Check LinkedIn for people who work there. Yes, definitely, Anirudh. And then Coco is saying, off topic, my computer is so bad that it takes 39 hours to render 250 frames at 30 FPS. May I ask what frame rate? Wait, are you talking about rendering, Coco, or are you talking about doing a play blast? Okay, so I think in the meantime I have my burp animation. Yeah. I think I may have the eyes spin even less. Bye, Coco. I'm not sure about your question, Coco. 39 hours for 250 frames may be, well, just fine. It depends on the shot, so, and on the render engine. So it's a bit difficult without seeing a picture. And yes, Anirudh, if they ask for 40 seconds in one day and it's fully fledged animation, that doesn't start too well, in my opinion. But again, maybe you won't even have... Is the test paid, Anirudh? Just so that I know, I'm curious. Because maybe you won't even get there, because if they're not sure themselves of what they are doing, and they ask you for such a test, and let's say that you don't manage to meet their expectations and do 40 seconds in one day, then they might as well say that you don't have enough experience to work there. And maybe they are right, maybe they are not, we will never know really. And in which case all your worry is useless, because you didn't stand a chance to begin with, maybe. So that's another thing that you probably want to consider. Let's have these eyes stretch a little bit on the way up, and then as we fall down we can delay the eyes a little bit. And maybe we can add an overshoot pose just to finish. Here we just overshoot ever so slightly. Anirudh, the test. I was saying, if the test is not considered successful, they will not hire you, right? So in which case you're worrying for nothing. Because maybe they don't even know that 40 seconds is too much. So maybe most people will automatically fail the test, if you see what I mean. In which case all of your worry is pointless. I'd say investigate a little bit on their credit history, see if they're paying, and then if you think they're paying, do the test if you're interested in the job, and see how it goes. If at any rate, if they are bidding for 40 seconds per day, I doubt myself that they have a big budget, if you see what I mean. I really think they don't. So, so you will see that as well. You will discover, usually this kind of stuff you discover pretty soon anyway. But it's an interesting situation, because it seems to me, are you based in India? Just so that I know, I'm curious about the nation where this thing is happening. There you go. In the meantime, I am checking my playblast. I think it will be fine with this animation. Yeah, so it seems to me that India is very similar to the way Italy was in many ways as far as animation startups are concerned. So that's why I'm curious. I'm really curious to being kept posted about this. So we have the croaking, and then we have the burp. And I think for the purpose of the game, this stuff maybe could work. Okay, so I started this session 2 hours and 40 minutes ago, more or less. The idea was to do an idle which was supposed to be looking a bit smarty, a bit mischievous, actually. That was the term I used. Just a second. And then I had to do a burp or hiccup, depending. And finally I had to do a croak. And we did all of them. So I think I can do a play blast and check that everything works alright. I'm not happy about the knees, which in the meantime have moved quite a lot. So and I'm very there's something going on there. Two, 4, 3. I think this is the guy. Okay, so I'm missing one key at 2, 4, 3. So I'm going to need to make sure that I get the same exact pose at beginning and end. There you go. And then there you go. So now I should have, let's have a look at the play blast. I should get some sort of smartass idle, and then I should get a croaking action, and then I should get a burp. So Nicola is saying, is it true that in Italy it is illegal to break spaghetti? Totally true. We never break spaghetti. Ever. I'm joking. There's not such a rule. And in fact, if you say you're sick and you don't want to eat anything heavy, one way to do stuff is to do pasta for people who are a bit sick, is to do what we call pastina. And that's Japanese, sorry, I'm writing with the Japanese keyboard. And pastina is essentially pasta in broth. And if you don't have broth, if you don't have the pasta available for the broth, you actually break the spaghetti to do the pastina. I would never imagine I would have talked about this in a live, guys. So in the meantime, I think I'm doing a play blast, yes. Okay, so let's have a look at animation. Yeah, I think Anirudh, there are a lot of similarities between India and Italy. So now we have, there you go. We have the idle with the frog looking a bit smart aleck, looking left and right, and then the croaking, and then the burping. So we have the free animations done. Those were the animation we wanted to do. It took us about 2 hours and 40. That's not too bad. In the meantime, we talked about stuff, which is fantastic. And I'm quite happy that it worked. I was a bit afraid of doing this thing live again because it takes so much longer to animate live. But it seems like it's doing its job. So I'm very happy about this. And I had a nice chat with Nicola, Anirudh, Coco. Thank you very much for joining me today, and all the others who joined, and Tony as well. It was a lot of fun. And remember that I stream. Oh, sorry. Remember that I stream every Thursday, and next Thursday I'm going to. Well, this Thursday really, which is coming up. I'm going to stream about workspace politics. So animation, let me check if it should be already up. There you go. So the next stream is going to be this Thursday. We're going to talk about workplace politics. So what happens into a space in a studio in terms of dynamics between people, and whether and leads, juniors, supervisors, directors, clients, how do these things really work, and are there politics involved? I'm pretty sure there are, but I really want to hear the opinion of Max and Francesca as well. So have a good evening, guys, and thank you very much for joining me today. It was really a lot of fun, so thank you again. And maybe I will see you on Thursday. I certainly hope to see you on Thursday. And if you're interested in the game, I really suggest you check out the video game page, because I think it could be fun. I'm going to paste it again. You can sign up for their newsletter, and I did it myself, because this way I know when they expect to launch the Kickstarter and this kind of stuff. Bye. Have a good night. Bye bye. Oh, remember to like and subscribe if you liked it. Bye bye.